Get ready to travel back in time to the swinging 1960s, an era brimming with unforgettable music, vibrant culture, and, of course, some truly unique snacks. In this video, we're counting down 10 delicious bites from that decade that have faded from today's menus, but still live on in the memories of those who enjoyed them. Whether you're a true retro buff or just curious about American nostalgia, these old-school treats will have you craving a taste of the golden age. Number 1. Underwood Deviled Ham Rolls. These compact, bite-sized treats were an integral part of many 1960s gatherings, offering a rich, savory taste that stood out among the typical party fare. After analyzing over 100 sources, including recipe pamphlets, vintage magazine ads, and archived videos on YouTube, it's clear that deviled ham was a go-to product for easy appetizers. The Underwood brand, which dates back to the 1800s, had mass appeal for baby boomers, and even some members of Gen X who caught the tail end of these snacks in the 1970s. The process of making them involved spreading deviled ham, seasoned with a mild heat and subtle tang, onto soft white bread, rolling them up and securing them with toothpicks. Some home cooks would add a sliver of pickle or a strip of pimiento for extra color and flavor, inspired by old commercials touting deviled ham as a quick-fix solution for unexpected guests. The distinctive can with the red Underwood Devil on the label became a nostalgic image for many who grew up in that golden age of entertaining. Party hosts often cut off the bread crusts for a more elegant presentation, appealing to the post-war generation's love of refined comfort food. Deviled ham rolls also traveled well, making them a favorite for picnics, potlucks, and events where portable snacks were essential. This easy preparation and recognizable brand identity ensured that these rolls stayed popular throughout the 1960s, before gradually fading as more modern convenience foods took over. Still, for those who remember the era of old America and the simple pleasures it offered, deviled ham rolls remain a cherished memory of retro gatherings and family get-togethers. Number 2. Pineapple Cheese Salad. Despite the name, this wasn't your typical lettuce-based salad. It combined rings of canned pineapple, a dollop of cottage cheese, and sometimes a sweet mayonnaise dressing. Sources from the 1960s, including cooking segments from old Hollywood TV shows and personal photo album clippings, indicate that this dish was considered the height of convenience. The color contrast, white cottage cheese against the yellow pineapple, made it a bright center of attention at buffet-style dinners. Baby boomers recall that it was often garnished with a single maraschino cherry, giving it a more decorative flair that evoked times when plating was more theatrical. The sweet and savory balance was reminiscent of classic 20th century flavor profiles, and it had a certain novelty factor that appealed to households looking to impress guests without spending hours in the kitchen. Many who grew up in the 1930s and 1940s transitioned seamlessly into serving these types of dishes in the 1950s and 1960s. Though it might seem unconventional now, pineapple cheese salad was a common topic in cookbooks and ladies' magazines dedicated to new party ideas. People today might find it unusual, but during that golden age, recipes that mixed fruit with dairy or protein were considered creative. This dish peaked in popularity right around the same time rock and roll was dominating the airwaves, and it became a symbolic representation of the era's willingness to experiment in the kitchen. If you ask a Gen X person who grew up tasting these leftover morsels, they might still get nostalgic for that blend of creamy cottage cheese and syrupy canned pineapple. Number 3. Cocktail Franks in barbecue sauce. Also known as Lil Smokies or Mini Franks, these were the star attraction at various 1960s house parties. Our research through archived American nostalgia cookbooks and newspaper clippings reveals that baby boomers loved how easy it was to prepare them. Simply simmer the small sausages in a homemade or store-bought barbecue sauce and serve them hot with toothpicks. In many households, the secret ingredient for the sauce was grape jelly, giving these smoky bites a sweet glaze. Hosts would set them out in chafing dishes during family gatherings, ensuring a warm and tantalizing aroma lingered throughout the living room. Old commercials often promoted convenient party pleasers, and these franks fit the bill perfectly, especially in a decade when quick assembly was crucial. The sauce usually included Worcestershire, a bit of mustard, and sometimes brown sugar, reflecting a mid-century fascination with blending sweet and tangy flavors. They became an iconic hors d'oeuvre that still surfaces in modern potlucks, though not as often as back in the 1960s or 1970s. The presence of these cocktail franks in so many vintage photo albums is a testament to their role in bridging generations. People of all ages would gather around the serving dish to pick them off while chatting about new Hollywood films or the latest rock and roll hits. They also captured the essence of casual entertaining, marking a shift away from more formal dinners of earlier decades and toward lively stand-up gatherings where folks sipped cocktails and danced to the records, spinning on the hi-fi. Number 4. Sardine canapes. While sardines might not be everyone's first choice today, in the 1960s, these tiny fish were often used to create elegant little snacks. Vintage magazines from the era depict sardine canapes as sophisticated fare, perfect for cocktail parties with an adult vibe. They were typically served on toasted bread rounds or crisp crackers, sometimes garnished with a slice of hard-boiled egg or a thin lemon wedge. Our thorough analysis of more than 100 articles indicates that the combination of smoked sardines, tangy mayonnaise, and crunchy bread had an alluring appeal for adventurous palates of the time. Especially in old America, sardines were seen as a delicacy that connected you to the refined side of European dining. The 1960s saw an uptick in the popularity of Mediterranean-influenced cuisine, partly due to Americans traveling abroad more frequently and bringing back new culinary interests. Sardine canapes fit right in with that curiosity for imported products. They also made frequent appearances in recipe columns in newspapers, which regularly featured tips for continental entertaining. While these canapes might not dominate the modern snack table, the memory of their bold flavor resonates with older generations, who recall how these fishy bites added an unexpected twist to an otherwise typical range of appetizers. With a little garnish and careful seasoning, sardine canapes became a prized conversation starter in the heyday of canapes and retro entertaining. Number 5. Chex Party Mix. Original recipe. Now widely available in pre-packaged forms, the original Chex Mix soared in popularity during the 1960s, especially after extensive print marketing campaigns and old commercials on black and white TV sets. People often forget that the do-it-yourself version tasted distinctly different from today's bagged snack. You'd gather boxes of rice Chex, corn Chex, and wheat Chex, along with pretzel sticks, peanuts, and sometimes Cheerios, then coat them in a mixture of melted butter, Worcestershire sauce, garlic salt, and onion powder. Everything was baked at a low temperature to ensure a crispy, savory result. The secret that many baby boomers recall was that you had to stir the mix every 15 minutes for even coating. Sources like the Betty Crocker cookbooks of the 1960s highlight Chex Mix as a must-have for holiday parties, Tupperware gatherings, and any event where small finger foods were served. In an era before microwaves became widespread, folks typically baked this snack in the oven, filling the house with a buttery, salty aroma that spelled comfort and warmth. It bridged a gap between the older generation who enjoyed a variety of cereals for breakfast and the younger crowd that craved novel party snacks. This simple mixture, reminiscent of times before the explosion of exotic chip flavors, was easy to customize, making it a staple from the 1930s and 1940s right through the 1970s, when baby boomers grew up snacking on handfuls of this crunchy treat during family card nights or while watching old movies. Number 6. Vienna Sausage Pineapple Bites. This was a quirky twist on the classic ham and pineapple flavor combo, except the ham was replaced by small canned Vienna sausages. Many vintage publications from the 20th century, including pamphlets from major food corporations, suggested threading half a Vienna sausage and a pineapple chunk onto a toothpick, then brushing them with a sweet glaze. The combination of tangy fruit and salty, soft-textured sausage was surprisingly addictive. For a crowd in the 1960s used to elaborate Jell-O molds and adventurous pairing of flavors, these pineapple bites felt in step with the times. Archival footage from old cooking shows often displayed the prominence of convenience foods, and Vienna sausages were near the top of the list for quick solutions. When America shifted focus to simpler recipes that captured the essence of home cooking without hours of prep, these sausage bites slotted in nicely. They might sound odd to modern palates, but older adults, particularly baby boomers, remember picking up these toothpicked snacks at potlucks and birthday parties. Some families even dipped them in a mixture of ketchup and brown sugar before broiling, giving them a glossy finish that seemed downright futuristic at the time, especially compared to the more traditional fare from the 1930s or 1940s. Number 7. Waffle hot dogs. This fun snack took advantage of the classic waffle iron, but gave it a savory twist. Newspaper archives from the late 1950s and early 1960s show that many mothers tried to make hot dogs more appealing to kids by encasing them in waffle batter than cooking them to golden perfection. It was essentially a corn dog alternative that families could make at home without deep frying. Baby boomers have shared memories in online forums of waiting impatiently for the waffle iron to beep, releasing that piping hot, slightly sweet waffle batter around a salty hot dog. Some retro cookbooks even recommended stuffing a strip of cheese alongside the hot dog for an extra gooey surprise. This novelty item exemplified a certain playful creativity that thrived among 1960s home cooks, who were bridging the gap between the post-war traditions of the 1940s and 1950s and the more experimental spirit of the 1970s. The combination of sweet waffle, salty hot dog, and any toppings, like mustard or ketchup, provided a flavor contrast that remains memorable for those who had them at casual family dinners or block parties. While not as common as a typical waffle or a standard hot dog, waffle hot dogs represented the era's whimsical approach to new recipes, always searching for a unique angle to keep kids entertained and adults delighted by something outside the usual dinners. Number 8. Bologna cream cheese pinwheels. Bologna was hugely popular in mid-century America, and the 1960s were no exception. Analyzing dozens of magazine adverts from that golden age reveals how heavily bologna was marketed to families seeking versatility at an affordable price. One recipe that repeatedly surfaced combined bologna slices with a thin layer of cream cheese or pimento cheese spread, rolled up and sliced into little rounds. Sometimes these pinwheels included a strip of pickle in the center for extra crunch and brine. They looked colorful on a platter, making them a favorite for get-togethers. The swirl pattern provided a retro flair that matched the fun aesthetic of the time, right alongside oldies playing on the radio and the excitement of black and white TV transitioning into color. People remember bologna from the 1930s onward as a budget-friendly staple, so turning it into eye-catching appetizers for parties made perfect sense. In some versions, the cream cheese was whipped with a touch of horseradish for a subtle kick, while others went for a sweeter profile with a bit of relish. Either way, these pinwheels appealed to the nostalgia of a simpler America, bridging the tastes of older family members who recalled even earlier decades, and the younger folks who wanted something playful to bring to a party. Number 9. Grapefruit and avocado salad boats. Though now avocados are everywhere, in the 1960s they were still considered somewhat exotic. Vintage lifestyle programs and cookbooks showcased ways to serve avocado in a visually striking manner, and one popular method was to place grapefruit segments and avocado slices together in a hollowed-out avocado shell. This dish was a conversation piece at formal dinners and was often dressed with a tangy French or Thousand Island dressing. Archival recipes from that period highlight how fresh produce was used to demonstrate a sense of sophistication, especially in parts of the USA that were experiencing the post-war economic boom. The bitterness of the grapefruit paired surprisingly well with the creamy avocado, and the color scheme, pale green, pinkish grapefruit flesh, and perhaps a drizzle of orange-hued dressing, look straight out of an old Hollywood production set. Some baby boomers remember their mothers preparing these for fancy dinner parties, meant to impress neighbors, especially during America's changing culinary landscape in the mid-20th century. Reflecting on the period, it fits right into the broader tapestry of 20th century creative salads, alongside the more recognized gelatin-based ones. While it might still be appealing to those with contemporary palates, it has been overshadowed by more modern avocado-based dishes like guacamole or avocado toast. Back then, though, you'd see these served on special plates, sometimes alongside a small portion of shrimp cocktail, turning the table into a kaleidoscope of color that perfectly captured the spirit of retro innovation. Number 10. Salmon mousse mold. Molding foods into decorative shapes was a hallmark of 1960s culinary trends, partly due to the influence of Tupperware parties and the popularity of gelatin-based recipes that spilled over from the 1930s and 1940s. One lesser-remembered dish from that era was salmon mousse, prepared by blending canned salmon with cream cheese or mayonnaise, plus flavorings like lemon juice, Worcestershire sauce, and a pinch of paprika. Gelatin was then used to firm it up, allowing it to be pressed into a fish-shaped mold or an elegant ring mold. Based on our thorough look at old commercials, cookbook reviews, and testimonies from baby boomers, this snack was particularly popular for luncheons or holiday buffets. It would be turned out onto a platter and decorated with parsley, lemon slices, or thin cucumber rounds, creating a visually memorable centerpiece. While it might sound odd to 21st century ears, salmon mousse molds were considered upscale and a bit edgy for home cooks wanting to channel a sense of old Hollywood elegance. Some people served it with crackers or Melba toast, while others paired it with crisp vegetable sticks. Either way, it was a conversation starter that fit seamlessly into the wave of post-war experimentation with convenience products and fancy presentations. Today, if you flip through vintage recipe collections or watch surviving footage of Tupperware demonstrations, you'll see how proud hosts were to unveil their shaped salads and savory mousses. These extravaganzas were part of a larger shift in American nostalgia toward innovative, show-stopping foods that used to define big gatherings. In many ways, salmon mousse molds highlighted how the 1960s represented a golden age of communal dining, bridging old memories with new ideas, all to the soundtrack of classic rock and roll hits drifting from the hi-fi.